iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max now can record video in ProRes RAW. And today we'll dive deep into the ProRes RAW recording with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and we'll compare it to the standard Apple log as well as the stock camera. Is the ProRes RAW recording a real revolution, or we have some caveats? Let's find out. To record video in ProRes RAW with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you do need an external SSD. Even the 2TB models do not record internally with the ProRes RAW codec. There are two best ways to record in ProRes RAW. This is the Final Cut Camera app, and when you choose ProRes RAW, it says that you should use the external device, and when I try to enable my SSD, it says that it should be formatted to exFAT, which is not ideal, and none of my drives are in exFAT. That is why I've been using the BlackMagic camera app, which has much more controls. And with ProRes RAW recording, you only have three main lenses: 13mm, 24mm, and 100mm. Or 0.5x, 1x, and 4x lenses. If you go to the Record tab and you choose ProRes RAW HQ, you're able to record about 1 hour of footage, and my SSD had 1200 gigs of spare storage. That's a lot, guys. And if we switch to HEVC recording or H.265, in the maximum bitrate, we have more than 40 hours. That's a pretty substantial difference, guys. 1 minute of ProRes RAW HQ is approximately 15 GB, ProRes RAW Standard is approximately 10 GB for 1 minute of footage, non-ProRes RAW, just the ProRes 422 HQ, is 6.5 GB per minute, and in HEVC, in the maximum bitrate, you only have about 600 MB for 1 minute of recording. It means that the ProRes RAW HQ is 25 times bigger than the HEVC or H.265. Wow. In ProRes RAW recording, you have two options: the 17:9 with 4224 pixels by 2240, and the Open Gate recording 4:3, 4224 pixels by 3024 pixels. And also, guys, in ProRes RAW recording, you don't have access to stabilization, it simply turns off. And when you use stabilization in any other mode like Apple log or standard recording in Rec. 709, you have a pretty substantial crop. So that is why for today's test, I'm only using stabilization off with all the formats and codecs. And right now, guys, you're looking at the 0.5x camera. On the left, we have H.265 in Apple Log 2 converted to Rec. 709. In the middle, we have the 0.5x camera in ProRes RAW HQ converted to Apple Log 2 and then to Rec. 709. And on the right, we have the 0.5x camera with the stock camera app without any corrections. And when we zoom into 300% scale, I can definitely tell that the H.265 in Apple Log 2 and the ProRes RAW are really comparable in terms of detail, and the stock camera app, as always, adds a lot of over sharpening and it looks pretty much gross. By the way, guys, please watch this video on a bigger screen, because on the smartphone the stock camera might look okay, but if you look at it on a bigger screen, you do see all the gross noise reduction, over sharpening, and other artifacts of the stock camera app. That is why I prefer shooting in Apple Log, or right now in ProRes RAW. And guys, when you work with ProRes RAW in Final Cut Pro, you have those settings. For example, you can change the color noise, it gets rid of the chroma noise in the shadows, then you have the edge contrast, and finally you have the detail enhancement. And right now on the screen you can see those settings set to 0, 2.5, and to 1. And in my experience, I prefer to set the chroma levels to about 0.3, the edge contrast to about 0.5, and also the detail enhancement to about 0.2 to get nice results. But you can always play around with those settings. And right now, guys, you're looking at the 1x camera, once again H.265 in Apple Log 2, the ProRes RAW HQ, and the stock camera app. All three images look more or less identical aside from the over sharpening on the stock camera. And when we pixel peep and zoom into 300% scale, I can see that the ProRes RAW HQ has slightly more detail and a bit less over sharpening and all-in-all processing. And finally, here we have the 4x camera, the same settings, H.265 on the left, ProRes RAW HQ in the middle, and the stock camera at 4x on the right side. And when we zoom into 300% scale, once again, I can say that the ProRes RAW looks the best. Then on the second place, we got the Apple Log 2 in H.265 codec, and then we have the 4x stock camera, which has pretty gross over sharpening, as I've been saying throughout many years. And just out of curiosity, here is the 500% scale of the 0.5x camera. On the left, we have the H.265 codec, then we have the ProRes RAW Standard, then we have the ProRes RAW HQ, and then the 0.5x stock camera. And I don't see a huge difference between the ProRes RAW Standard and ProRes RAW HQ, and that is why I suggest shooting in standard ProRes RAW. You simply don't need that big file sizes. And here is the same comparison, but with the 1x camera. Once again, ProRes RAW HQ and the standard ProRes RAW are not that far apart, and just look at this over sharpening on the stock camera. Just use the Blackmagic camera and bake in the LUT. It's really simple and you'll get much better results. And right now on the left you see the H.265 Apple Log 2 in 4K compared to 25 times bigger file size in 4K ProRes RAW HQ. And can you justify this big of a difference in terms of file sizes compared to the sharpness and detail of the image? That's a question. And one more comparison, Apple Log 2 in 4K ProRes 422, the standard one non-RAW, and compared to 4K ProRes RAW HQ. Do you see a huge difference? I don't. To be honest guys, I don't even shoot in ProRes. I shoot always in H.265 because after I upload the video to YouTube, the compression gets in the way and you get basically the same result if you shot in ProRes or if you shot in H.265. And right now guys, you see the Open Gate recording with the 0.5x camera, and here is your regular 16:9 image. This is how much you get in terms of vertical resolution with the Open Gate recording. Right now you're looking at the 1x camera, and this is how much you get with the Open Gate, which is really handy for making both vertical and horizontal images from one video file. And here is the 4x camera, and this is how much you get with the Open Gate recording. And here is the comparison of the Open Gate recording compared to an actual vertical shot. Of course, you'll get a bit wider shot if you shoot vertically, but still we have pretty nice resolution if we compare it with 500% scale. It is better with a true vertical shot, but still you can get pretty decent results if you shoot in Open Gate. So in my opinion, if you do need to make 2 videos out of one, Open Gate is a nice option, but if you only need to record in vertical orientation, for example for Instagram Reels, just use the vertical mode. Also, the Open Gate recording is not only available on the 17 Pro Max in ProRes RAW, but you can also enable it on older smartphones if you set the color space to Rec. 709 and you'll be limited to 30 frames per second. But this is what you will get with older smartphones. So here is the ProRes RAW Open Gate and here is the Rec. 709 Open Gate, and as you can tell guys, you get about 200 pixels less from the sides, which is not ideal. And here is the side-by-side comparison of 2 Open Gate modes, and as you can tell we have a lot more over sharpening, and all in all the dynamic range is lower in the Rec. 709 mode, but still it's a nice option if you don't want to purchase the 17 Pro Max and to record in Open Gate in ProRes RAW at all times. And also the Open Gate recording is really cool if you combine it with the anamorphic lens. If you use those with your smartphone, you'll get not as narrow field of view, maintaining the characteristics of the anamorphic lenses, but still getting more resolution, especially vertically. And it means that your single anamorphic lens right now is 2-in-1. You can have the pretty narrow field of view, and also with Open Gate you can make it wider as well. Also with RAW recording you're able to change white balance in post, and here is the example of 2500 Kelvin, and I've changed the white balance in post. And also here is the comparison of Apple Log H.265 as it was shot in camera, also the ProRes RAW after the grade, and also on the right you'll see the H.265 Apple Log 2 and my best attempt to correct the white balance there, and as you can tell it wasn't successful at all. In the next shot I did change it from super warm to actually normal looking color, and here is the example with the skin tone. So this is my best attempt to recover the skin tone. Here is the ProRes RAW recording, and here you can see all 3 images side by side. No matter I tried my best with the H.265 Apple Log recording, I didn't get as good of a result as in ProRes RAW. And for my next test I did use the ND filter because I did underexpose the image by a lot, and I tried to pull the image, Apple Log and also Apple ProRes RAW. And here is the comparison. Both don't look really nice, but still Apple ProRes RAW has more detail and less compression artifacts. And here is the overexposed Apple Log, and this is my best attempt to recover the highlights. And I'll be switching from Apple Log to ProRes RAW, and as you can tell guys, ProRes RAW contains more highlight details, but it's not magic. If you overexpose by a big margin, you will overexpose completely. All in all, I would say that the ProRes RAW does have slightly bigger dynamic range, but guys, be careful and do not overexpose your image. And to work with ProRes RAW in post, you'll need to install the Final Cut Pro 11.2 version. So basically in here you go to Info, then you go to Extended Mode, and then you go down and modify ProRes RAW settings. In here you have basically 2 modes, the standard one, but we don't need this one, we need the ProRes RAW from iPhone. And here you can see the ISO, and you can change the ISO value in post. Also here you can see the exposure bias, so you can basically make the image look brighter or darker. Here you see the captured temperature, and you can set the toggle to be as shot white balance or to make it customizable. So basically this is what I'm doing, and I'm trying to get my best in terms of color temperature and in terms of tint, the green and magenta. And then we have the custom demosaicing. Here we have the color noise, edge contrast and detail enhancement, and let me show you how they work. Okay, let's zoom into 600%. Here is the color noise, and as you can tell we get rid of of the chroma noise, here is the edge contrast, but be really gentle with it, and here is the detail enhancement, also be really gentle with it. Here we can set the raw signal to log, so we can choose the Apple Log 1 or the Apple Log 2. And yes, the Apple Log 2 is now available in BlackMagic camera for the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. And then you go up to the camera LUT, and here you can choose the Apple Log 2, and voila, we got the graded image. You can also change it to Apple Log first generation, and you can change the LUT to Apple Log first generation, and in my opinion it also looks really nice, but the Apple Log 2 appears to be slightly more colorful and contrasty, and all in all better in terms of color reproduction. And right now, guys, we're comparing the 4K H.265 Apple Log 2 at 3200 ISO 0.5x camera with the 4K ProRes RAW HQ. And at the first glance, the images are really similar, but when we zoom into 500% scale, I can definitely tell that the H.265 has a lot more compression and noise reduction going on, we see much less detail, and the ProRes RAW footage has a little bit more noise, but you can work with this noise in post with Neat Video Noise Reduction tool, for example, and get better results. The same goes for the 1x camera, and by the way, the 1x camera is miles ahead of the 0.5x and especially the 4x cameras in low light conditions. But still, guys, when we zoom into 500% scale, you can still see a lot more noise on the ProRes RAW, but we retain more detail and have less noise reduction artifacts. And then when we switch to 4x camera, we have less magenta noise in the Apple ProRes RAW, and the same story, more detail, less noise reduction, but more noise itself. It means that if you want to get the best results, you can use the Apple ProRes RAW HQ and then denoise it in post. It'll be better than shooting in H.265 in Apple Log. And just out of curiosity, here is the footage graded with the Enhancer Pro plugin for film emulation. Looks cool in my opinion. Okay guys, what did we learn from those tests? Apple ProRes RAW still contains noise reduction and post-processing and a little bit of sharpening of the image, so this is not a true RAW. And to be honest, ProRes RAW codec, even on my Sony cameras, yes, we do have the same codec on the Sony cameras, for example with the Atomos Ninja 5, it still contains a little bit of post-processing, so it's not a true RAW. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. A lot of people and usual customers will appreciate a little bit of noise reduction baked into the footage, and it means that you have to do less in post-processing, but the geeks will say, come on, it's not the true RAW signal, and I do agree. And the main question, guys, is the ProRes RAW worth it? I would say for 99% of people, it's not. Maybe Danny Boyle will shoot his next movie in ProRes RAW HQ, but for most of the users, ProRes RAW is not the case. And the main reason, in my opinion, is the humongous file sizes. You don't have a lot of SSD storage, and you'll be able to record like 1 hour for 1.5 terabytes. Come on. I would say the ProRes RAW recording is only worth it if you desperately need to record in Open Gate and you are not happy with the Rec 709 and 30 frames per second, which you can do externally and internally with the regular smartphones. Only in this case the ProRes RAW makes sense. In other cases, I'm not really sure. And also I really wish that Apple adds the support of Open Gate recording in Apple Log, not in RAW, just the Apple Log would be fine, and more than 30 frames per second, like the 60 FPS would be the sweet spot. Maybe in the iPhone 19 Pro Max we'll see that. And by the way guys, if you do want to play around with ProRes RAW footage, I did upload 3 files to my Google Drive. They're pretty heavy, but still you can simply download them and play around with them completely for free, just for your curiosity. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope now you don't have any questions about Apple ProRes Log, but if you still have them, please drop them in the comment section down below. And if you did enjoy this video, smash the like and subscribe buttons and hit the notifications bell. And right here I have my huge in-depth comparison of the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the iPhone 16 Pro Max in terms of cameras for photos and videos. I'll see you in that video, guys. Take care. Bye.